6th graders, it's Ms. Schwer here. Today we're going to go over lesson 1, area of a parallelogram. What I wanted to first show you was how this works. You guys are used to doing this with a rectangle, and the terminology is just a little bit different. So you guys are used to doing length times width on a rectangle, and remember, in order to be a rectangle, it has to have that little square showing that it's all right angles. So the only difference between that and what we're doing now is instead of this being called the length, you're now going to call it the base. You're going to call it the base, and then we're going to change that times to the dot, and then instead of having the width, you're going to have the height. That is the only difference. You find it out the exact same, except you're not going to see the length and the width anymore, you're going to see the base and the height. So that is for a basic rectangle. We're not doing rectangles. We are going to do parallelograms, and we know that a parallelogram is a shape that has 4 sides, and they're kind of slanted. These two are parallel, and those two are parallel. These two are the same length, those two are the same length. So how does this formula actually work? Because actually, in order to do a parallelogram, you use the exact same formula. And you might be saying, how does that actually work? So I wanted to show you actually how it works. So if I have a basic rectangle shape, if I take it, obviously I'm not removing any paper, I'm going to cut a triangle out of it. So I'm going to cut this one. And really there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I'm just going to cut a basic triangle out of it. Oops. Just like that. So now it's a regular rectangle. I'm not doing anything. In order to solve this, all I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to take my shape, and this is how you make it into a parallelogram. I'm now going to take that shape and I'm going to move it over here. When I do that, I'm not losing any paper at all. I'm just moving it to a new location. Okay, I'm just renaming it into a different spot. So I could actually take a piece of tape and I could tape it back together into my shape that is now a parallelogram. You saw that I didn't take any paper away, I didn't do anything with it, it's just I moved it over. So all I did with my shape is I moved it over. So what that means is if I have a regular sheet of paper, a rectangle, and a parallelogram, I lost no paper, I just moved it over. That's the reason we can still use the same formula. So hopefully that makes sense. I didn't get rid of any paper, I just moved it to the other side. So that's that. So the formula that we're going to use is area equals base times height. And remember that teeter-totter, either side, it can be on either side. So if you see it, base times height equals area, that's perfectly fine. Alright, so we're going to do 4 problems, go over them so that you guys can use them. And remember, you can use a calculator. If you have a calculator like this, you can use a calculator on your Chromebook. You can use a calculator on your phones, on your tablets. Pretty much any piece of technology has a calculator. You are allowed to use them. What I do want you to do is still write down the numbers that you're inputting. And remember, because you're using a calculator, you should plug every single number in twice, just to be sure. Okay, so the first one that we're going to do is just a regular parallelogram. Just a regular one. So the sides that I'm going to use is the bottom is going to be 10 feet. And then the way that the height is going to look, the height is either going to be right here. Oops. You're going to see a height. That's one place you're going to see it, so this one would be 7 feet. You could also see it over here. If you see it there, it's still 7 feet. Okay, so either place you see it, it's still going to be 7 feet. So that tells me the numbers I'm going to plug in is area equals my base, which is 10, and my height, which is 7. Okay, and then to solve it, area, this one you should not use a calculator for. 10 times 7 would give you 70. For these, be very careful that you're having a label for every single one. So our label for this would be feet. But because we're talking about area, you have 2 options. You can either do feet squared and put that little 2, or you could write area equals 70 and write the word square feet. You can either write the full word, you could write SQ with the dot, whichever you do, but make sure if it's feet, you use feet. If it's feet, don't put inches. It doesn't make any sense. So your final answer, I usually go with this one. Area equals 70 feet. Okay, so the part I want you to show for your work is the area and then what the 2 numbers that you're plugging in. If you are plugging in the right numbers, you should get the answer correct every single time. Okay, so that was number 1. So at this point, if you need to pause your video, you're going to put number 1 into your notebook in that second section where it said video practice. So that would be number 1. All right. Then we'll go to number 2. All right, number 2. This time we're going to use a parallelogram that looks like this. So this is one where it's a longer skinny shape. This one is going to be 3 and 8 centimeters on the bottom. And then this is the example of where the height could be on the outside. So if you ever see it like this, and the height is going to be 6 centimeters. Okay, so I have 3.8 and 6, so I'm going to plug into my formula, which is area equals base and height, and I'm just plugging in my values. 3.8 times 6. So at this point, you would take your calculator, or if you want to do it by hand, most of you know that sometimes that's actually quicker, times 6. I'm going to write the answer that I get. And then I'll check it again because I could have made a goofy mistake. And I get 22.8, so we know we're good. Next part is I need my label, centimeters, and then I add my squared. And then that's the answer in the circle. So that is my number 2. So again, if you need to pause the video to finish that, go ahead and do that. All right, number 3 is going to be a little bit different because the easier kind of the ones I just did, number 1 and 2. 3 is where it's going to get a little bit trickier. The shape I'm going to show you is similar to the ones you've seen. I'm going to make one difference though. And actually, I'm going to open this quick because it's kind of hard to see. Okay. All right, so this one is number 3 is going to be just a regular parallelogram. Okay, so in this one, you're not actually going to have your base. So that's going to be an unknown. But you are going to have your height, and your height that you're going to have is 13 yards. 13 yards. So, because I'm not giving you the base, I'm actually going to tell you what your area is. So the area for this one is, area equals 156 yards squared. So that's my answer. So now what I'm going to do, so this is finding the unknown. These are the second ones. So I'm going to start with my original formula. Area equals base times height. So now this one, I actually have the area. So I'm going to plug that in first. 156. And I don't need to use any labels yet. You can if you want, but you don't have to. 156 equals, I do not know my base, so I'm going to leave that. My height is 13. So these are the ones you have to work backwards. So right now it is a or a multiplication problem. So in order to figure out, I have to use division. So I'm going to draw that line just like we did in the last chapter. And instead of timesing by 13, I'm going to divide both sides by 13. Okay? So then that gets rid of those. I'm left with B equals, and then 156 divided by 13. If you want to use your calculators, you would go ahead and solve that. 156 divided by 13. 156 divided by 13. I got the same answer, so my answer would be 12. Hopefully you got 12 as well. I am going to switch this one around, not because I have to, but just because it's easier to write the label. My base is going to be 12. Now this is where you have to be really careful with your labels. Your answer was yards squared. The height and the base and the length, the base and the height are both just yards. We are finding the base. The biggest thing that students get wrong is they have their label wrong in these kinds. We are not doing yards squared because that was their answer. We're figuring out the base. So the label is going to be just yards, not yards squared, because that was only for our area. Okay. So 12 yards would be your answer. All right. And then we're going to go to our last regular one. All right, so this one's going to be number 4. All right, number 4 is a decimal one. All right, so we have another just regular parallelogram. The height we don't know on this one, so that height is our unknown. Our base is going to be 14.6 centimeters. The height we don't know, but we do know the area on this one. So the area equals 178.12 centimeters squared. So this is another one we're working backwards. So again, start with your formula. So base times height, and now we're gonna plug in our numbers. So area is 178.12 equals, base we know this time is 14.6. The height we don't know, so we're gonna leave that as a variable. We're gonna draw a line, and now I wanna get the 14.6 out of there so I can figure out what the height is. So it's a multiplication problem. I'm gonna do the opposite, which is 14.6, dividing on both sides. We know now that is gone. We're left with whatever our height is going to be. Now again, if you want to do that longhand, you can. I am letting you use a calculator, so if you want to, 178.12 divided by 14. And then make sure you're trying this as well. Okay, and I got the same answer both times. The answer I got was 12.2. Again, I'm gonna switch them just so that I can write my label. So 12.2. So now my label again is I'm figuring out the height. So it's just gonna be centimeters. It is not going to be centimeters squared. Okay, now again, if you wanna be really, really cautious, you can go back through and check that in. So we know our height is gonna be 12.2. We could actually put that back in, 14.6 times 12.2, and you should get the answer that I gave you. I'm gonna click equals 178.12, so I know my answer is correct. All right. Okay, I did add in one more on there, a number 5. This one would be this number 4 and number 5 would be level 4 problems for standards-based grading. These are the hardest ones of this type that you could have. So number 5, the reason why, you should know how to do this, but anytime I give you fractions, it just throws some of you off a little bit. So this one is a fraction one. So I need to draw a picture that matches right now. Okay, so on this one, your base is going to be 3.5 inches, and then your height is going to be 3.5 inches. Okay, so area equaling 3.5 inches is my base times 3.5 inches, which is my height. Again, this is nothing hard. Now some of you might say, I know that that's 3.5. I'm going to convert them both to decimals and do it that way. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. If you like fractions and you'd rather keep them as fractions, that's fine too. I'm going to show you it so you know how to do mass fractions. So my area equals, first thing I need to do is make them into improper fractions. So I'm going to leave the denominators as 2. 2 times 3 would be 6 plus 1 more 7. And then this is the exact same. Okay, no cross canceling, they're the same numbers. Area equals 7 times 7 is 49. Denominator is going to be 4. If we do that dump and divide method, you know that it's going to give you 49 divided by 4. So use that long division. Fits in 1. 4 times 2 gives you 8. I'm left with 1 over 4th. So it's 12 and 1/4. So my area is 12 and 1/4 inches, and now I am doing the area, so it'd be inches squared. Okay, so those were 5 problems. Figure out the area of a parallelogram in chapter 1. You're now going to do the reteach questions in your notebook. So go to that 3rd section of your notebook, or had homework, and you're going to do the 4 problems that are on that reteach sheet. And then tomorrow I will post the answers to those questions, and you can check them over to see how you did. So hopefully it's going well, and hopefully the answers seem to make sense and you know what you're doing. All right, see you later.